The Atlantic in February is a place of blunt truths. The water hovers just above freezing, the wind scrapes steel, and waves hit with the weight of houses. On February 10, 1983, the SS Marine Electric nosed out from Norfolk, Virginia, heavy with more than 24,000 tons of coal. She had been born in the hurried yards of 1944, lengthened and refitted over decades, signed off by inspectors who knew her name, and kept on the coastal run because papers said she could. Sailors swore by what paper missed: rust at the seams, hatch covers scabbed with patches, steel that rang thin when you rapped it with a wrench. The run to New England should have been routine, winter or not. But the barometer sagged. Gale warnings spread up the weather facts like spilled ink. North of the bay, the ship met a long marching field of gray. 30-foot seas rose to 40, snow arrived sideways, ice glued itself to rails and boots. Each time the bow climbed a wall of water and crashed down, the hull shuddered as if remembering younger years. Men went forward to check the hatches and found tarps flogging in the wind, dogs loose, combings pitted. Water found every weakness. It ran under gaskets into holds, across deck, down stairwells. Coal dust met seawater and turned to sludge that stole stability. By the evening of February 11th, the Marine Electric was down by the head. Pumps thumped a losing rhythm. The bridge tried course and speed changes to ease the pounding, bowing off, feeling for a kinder angle, but there was none. In the small hours of February 12th, the sea took its vote. A heavy sea slammed the forward deck. Hatch covers flexed. Green water poured into number 1. The bow settled, then dipped. At 4:03 a.m., Captain Philip Corll sent the words, "No one forgets." Mayday, mayday, mayday. We are going down. Abandoned ship drills imagined daylight and calm. The real Atlantic offered blackness, blowing snow, and breakers tall as telephone poles. Lifeboats were theory, rafts a prayer. Men hacked at lashings with knives numbed by cold. Some rafts tore free and vanished. Some flipped. Some rode the waves just long enough for a handful to crawl aboard. Many had no time. The Marine Electric pitched forward, the bow disappeared, and the stern lifted once. Then she was gone. The water pulled the heat out of bodies like a debt come due. In water near freezing, fingers stop answering within minutes, then arms, then lungs. Life jackets kept heads above water but offered no warmth. Sailors called to one another, the way men call across decks on good days, names thrown into wind and spray. Voices thinned. A few clung to wreckage. Some were carried clear of the worst seas and floated alone under rotor wash that had not yet arrived. The Coast Guard launched into a storm most would have called unflyable. Helicopters clawed at the air in sleet, searchlights combing a jumbled black and white ocean. Fixed-wing aircraft marked positions. Cutters drove bows into breaking seas. By the time the first swimmers and hoists found men, most were quiet in their life jackets. 3 lived: Chief Mate Robert Cusick, Third Mate Gene Kelly, and Boatswain's Mate Paul Dewey. They survived because chance, timing, and stubbornness briefly aligned, because a wave brought a light to the right patch of water, because a hand still had strength enough to hold a sling, because death miscounted. Survival does not soften memory. Cusick told investigators about the sound of men fading a few yards away, about jackets that keep you afloat while the cold unthreads you, about the horizon going narrow. His testimony, and that of the others, turned a tragedy into a ledger. On one side, storm and sea. On the other, the choices that sent an old ship into a February gale with bad hatches and pretty paperwork. The Marine Board of Investigation held hearings that winter and spring. What they learned was no mystery to any wiper who had crawled through a ballast tank. The Marine Electric's hatch covers were corroded and poorly maintained, her structure tired, Her inspections perfunctory, her owner marine transport lines content to patch and push. She should not have sailed. The board named names and causes. From the findings came change. More than 30 World War II-era freighters like her were pulled from service or subjected to repairs worthy of their age. Hatch cover standards tightened. Surveyors' work lost its rubber stamp and gained teeth. Captains found support for refusing departures that looked fine only on paper, and one reform, born straight from those freezing mornings, changed rescue itself. The Coast Guard created the Rescue Swimmer program. Before the Marine Electric, helicopter crews could lower baskets and hope. After, they would put trained swimmers into the water, athletes who could fight surf, clip a hypothermic sailor into a strop, and be hauled up together through spray and wind. In the years since, that decision has saved lives. The wreck lies in about 120 feet off Virginia, a rusting hull opening like a book along the seam that failed first. Divers who go down talk about shrimp ticking and fittings trembling when swell passes. Families visit the water above by charter boat and throw flowers. Onshore, a bronze plaque names 31 men and marks a hole that does not close. In Norfolk Union halls and New England kitchens, the story belongs to working sailors. They talk about the smell of wet coal and ice on ladders, about owners who treat steel like it's forever. They pass down Cusick's name as a verb, Cusick, to testify, to tell the truth even when it embarrasses the sea, and remind green hands that the ocean reads your maintenance log more closely than an auditor ever will. The Atlantic will find the weak point. Not all blame could be laid at Weather's door, and not all blame stopped at one company's letterhead. The board traced a net of normal failures. Inspectors who trusted what they were shown, schedules that punished prudence, a culture that treated old ships as if they owed one more profitable season. The Marine Electric cut through that net by sinking. Reforms stitched afterward, better stability calculations, stricter proofs of watertight integrity, retirement of walking wounded tonnage, were not charity, they were the price of learning. Picture the last minutes again, now that you know the rest. A mate looks aft and sees a deck he knows too well vanish under a weight. A hand on a valve wheel hesitates half a heartbeat too long because the glove has frozen stiff. A young sailor realizes the raft has flipped and remembers training and flips it back. Somewhere above, a pilot calls fuel state and stays anyway. A swimmer drops on a cable into a world of noise, finds a face, shouts a name that's lost to wind, clips the sling, and signals the hoist. Up they go against a cone of light, because a ship sank and a country changed what rescue meant. The Marine Electric was not sunk by storm alone. She was sunk by every corner cut and every signature that said satisfactory to work that wasn't. But her end did more than close lives. It opened a discipline. When a swimmer today leaps into cold seas that look like hammered lead, when a captain points to the weather and the paperwork and says no, when a surveyor's pen balks at a shortcut, those are pieces of the same legacy. The Atlantic, honest as ever, taught the lesson. Men paid the tuition, and because they did, others got to come home. In training rooms years later, new inspectors heard the case as caution. Never mistake a stamped form for a sound ship. Walk the steel. Tap the seams. Ask the crew what the paperwork forgot. The sea does its own auditing, and it seldom grants extensions. Thank you for listening to the Sunken Ledger. Subscribe for more true stories from the depths.